Hi folks, we've probably got about 10-15 minutes of video tutorial here, so I'm going to pop it all into one to sort of go through the whole process of the new Hero slider. So if you need to pause the video and grab a coffee or a tea, I'll just give you that warning right now. And then what we're going to talk about with the Hero slider is sort of the things we can do. What is it? What are we going to learn? Now the Hero slider itself, it's a really cool CSS and jQuery slider. It kind of has four options. Basically the first option, we can have a full screen background image with a caption that's centered on top. We can have a slide with the image on the left, image on the right with opposing captions. We can also have a full screen video background with a caption that's centered. This is a really cool option. And we can also have no background with a caption that's centered. So those are the four different options. So let's just take a quick look at the actual Hero slider. Here it is right here. We'll start off with slide number 1. Now this is an example of a full screen background image. If you're wondering what size image you can use for the background, well, the default image size that we use is always best to go with, which is 1920 by 1920 by 1080, which is a full high-res 1080p image. You can use any size image though. The slider will do its best to expand the image to fill up the background space. Simple as that. So if you had 800 by 400, 1200 by 1200, whatever the size of your image, it's still going to fill up the space. I like to use something on what's going to be sort of probably the largest, most common resolution, which is going to be a 1920 by 1080. That's why we chose that image size. Now that's for the full screen background. Now these left and right images right here, what's going to happen is you can actually use any size image you want. Now we've got a nice little cutout image here. You can put whatever you want in there. Right, we've used a PNG image which has a little bit of transparency and shows the background through. That's cool. You can also put just a JPEG image in, and whatever size image you put in here, right, the Hero slider will attempt to resize it to fit. So this is an image that's 1200 by 800. This actual picture right here is an example. So it actually would be a lot larger. It would probably be, it would take up, most of the page there if it in its actual size, but the slider will sort of squish it down to fit in here quite nicely. Right. And you don't need a cutout PNG image. You can use a JPEG image and it'll just show up as a regular picture over here or over here. Now if you're going to use a picture, just a regular JPEG picture, you may want to have something that's at least 700 pixels high and by whatever width you want, and then let the slider resize it to fit. Then we get into the really cool video background. Now this is unique because this is a local video. In other words, it's not something pulled from YouTube or Vimeo. For this particular example, it worked best to have the video hosted locally in your own site, and we'll talk a little bit about that because you need to have the video in two formats, MP4 and WebM. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to that part of the tutorial. Right. And finally, of course, we have just the caption, the description, and the buttons below. Just regular H2, a paragraph text right here. Sorry, this is an H2 tag, this is a paragraph tag, and this is just a regular button. So let's take a look at some of the first things we're going to learn in our tutorial, and that is adding or removing slides. Now, a slide and a nav button sort of go hand in hand. If you add a new slide, you should probably add a new button. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice. Try and keep your button names short and sweet. As you see here, our buttons, we have 6 of them, and we use very generic terms here. But if you look at the full screen slider, there's the background for the paragraph or the heading. Try and keep your buttons about the same width if you can. And the only reason I suggest that is for mobile users. It's one of these things on mobile devices because it's fully responsive. These buttons here don't stack up very well. So basically the last few buttons will just sort of fall off. You won't see them, right? Maybe not a huge, hopefully not a huge loss, but if you keep your button names short and sweet, you won't have as much trouble or any trouble at all. So it really depends on how much information you stuff down here, depending on what you'll see in your mobile device. But everything else up here in the slider itself, yeah, that'll be fully responsive. Now let's go take a look at some of the things we can do, like adding and removing slides. So let's go into our editor. We're going to go into our library, sliders, Hero slider, and our heroslider.htm page. Open that up. Now what we see when we open that page up is we just see the two images right in here for our left and our right slide. We see some image title, we see the description, we see the button text. Down below we see slide 1 through 6, which is the nav buttons that you would see down at the bottom. But one thing we don't see is the background, full screen background slides. I'll explain that in a second. But first thing, when you open this up, you might be wondering why you only see 2 images. So that's probably going to be something we're going to answer shortly here. Not probably, it will be something we answer shortly. But let's say we want to add a slide. Well, first of all, we're showing 3 types of slides. If you want to go without a background at all, I'll show you that later. But have to decide which sort of slide do you want. Do you want a background, a full screen background image? Do you want an image on the left or image on the right? Now, if you look at the Hero slider in the code view, it's all commented for you. Starting off with slide 1, it has an opening and a closing comment. And then each internal bit is also commented. This one tells you it's a parallaxing full screen background image. If we go down to slide 2, this says content on the left, image on the right. If we go down to slide 3, here it tells us image on the left, content on the right. And then we finally have, of course, slide number 4, content in center over video and video in background. So they're all labeled for you. So if you're going to add a new slide, actually we'll start off with removing a slide because that's the easiest one. If you want to remove a slide, pick the slide you don't want, select the code, slide 1 to slide 1, and delete. And that's it, it's gone. Now, you also need to remove the button for that slide. So scroll on down, and you see all the buttons, just like the slides up above, they're commented as well. We have button 1 here. Starts with button 1, ends with button 1. Select and delete. Okay, cool. Now you've gotten rid of a slide. That's how easy it is to get rid of them. Now adding them just takes a little bit more forethought, because when you add a slide, first of all, you need to determine which type of slide you want to add. Full screen background, image on the left, image on the right, or video. If you're going to add a, let's start off with the full screen background image. You would first of all copy an existing slide using the full screen background image, then you paste it below. You would scroll down to the button area, and you'd select or copy button 1 and paste it below. Okay, now I'm not going to say problem, but after all is said and done, I tend to go back and re-label all my comment tags so that all my slides and buttons are back in order, because when I copy and paste, I've got button 1, then I got button 1 here, but if I rename this to button 2 and button 2, you see, then I've got button 2 and button 2 here already. So at some point in time, when I'm all done, I would go back myself and rename these so they're all back in order. Although comment tags will have no effect on how things are displayed in your page, it's just, for me, it's a tidy thing, a good format thing. And after you've copied your button, of course, you may want to change the name of the button at this point in time. And this is where you change it. This piece of black text that says slide 1. Select it, type in a new name for your button. You can even do that in the design window, right? You can just sort of select it, new, but then you may lose the link. So it's a little bit easier just to do that in the code view while you're in there already. Okay, because sometimes doing in the design view does weird things. So that is the first step to adding a new slide. We copy, we paste. Now if it's a full screen background image, earlier I mentioned you don't see it in the page because, let's go back to our example, let's go to this first slide. Watch what happens when I scroll. You see the slide in the background, the image in the background? It moves at a different speed than the rest of my page when I scroll. It's called a parallaxing effect. It's kind of a cool effect. The text moves over a little bit faster, but the image doesn't move at the same rate as we're scrolling. So it has a really cool effect. Now if I go to a slide with a side image and I scroll the page, you'll notice that the side image moves at the same speed as the rest of the page when I scroll. That's because we're using a side image and it doesn't parallax well, because it has to be a background image applied via CSS in order to work. And because it has to be a background image, you won't see it in the actual library page, but I'll show you where to go and change. Now, to change the image for your slide, let's say right here, this is the one we've copied and pasted, we need to change this to a different class. And how do we do that? We go to our hero, our CSS, hero slider, and we go right down to the very bottom, right down here. Right. Now here is we're going to change to what we call Hero Slide 2. And like I said, when we're done this, you may have to go and if you're using all full screen background images, you'll have to make sure your classes don't sort of overlap. And you can apply an HS Slide 5 to slide number 8 if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter. It just matters about what picture you're going to be adding. So I would like to try and keep things in order. This is actually going to be my slide 2. So I'm going to change this to HS Slide 2, and then in my style sheet, there's the HS Slide 2 class. You see, here's where the background image is being loaded in for that, right? So what I would do then is change this to, I need it to be full screen, so it has to be a JPEG. And if we look in our folder here, you would create a hero-slider2.jpg, put it in here, and then it would link in to your CSS right there. So you just, whatever the name of the image is right here, this is where whatever image you want for that class is going to show up right there. But that's only for full screen background images. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to show you one little trick for some folks that might make this a little bit easier, is let's just copy our slide 1 and paste it. I'm going to call this image 1. Okay, that's probably not the best class name because it might be used for something else, but let's go with, camping. Okay, we're going to call this camping image. And let's say, for example, over here, I'm going to copy and paste this one here for a second. Let's say, for example, we had an image called camping image.jpg. Okay, well, all I would have to do is I've copied my HS slide. I renamed it to camping image. Keep in mind I had to include the period here. I can now take my image that I've created and I can pop it right in there. I can take this class name right here, and where it says HS Slide 2, I can put that class in right there. And because it's now looking at this class in this style sheet, it's going to look to here, say, oh, here's the image we need to load in the background, and it's going to do all the work for you. So the class name is almost, although we've named it H1 slide, slide 1 through 10 or 11 down here, what really matters is that whatever class you use here is going to load or look in for a matching class in here, and then it's going to load in whatever JPEG or PNG image you would actually have in the page there. Okay, now that's it for the full screen background. For the half images, guess what? You change it just like any old image you would have in any library page you've worked in. You look, you go, you say, I'm going to double click. The default size here, I have 1200 by 800, so I could go with an image as large as that or something smaller, right? And to change it, once I've double clicked and opened up the picture properties, I just have to hit the browse button, go to whatever folder I've put the images in, and I highly recommend you put your images into the library, sliders, hero slider, and images folder. That keeps everything in one nice place. I'm going to select this picture right here, and I'm going to click OK, and boom, now it's changed. Changed to the same one as down below, but that's just an example of how to change a picture that's used for the left or the right. Right? Full screen background, you have to apply the class and make sure the class loads in the image you want, and the left or right, you just have to change it like normal. Changing the title and description, this is the H2 tag right here. It shows us up top here. Just change that by selecting the text and change like any piece of text in a page. Same with the paragraph text right here for the description, and of course the Learn More button, same sort of thing. What you could do is select the entire piece of text for the button, right click, and I must have selected it a little bit. Just right click on it and do the hyperlink properties. That'd probably be smarter, right? And then you can change the information here and the link for the button right there. Okay, so that sort of covers most of the things you're going to be doing, except for the background video. Now here's how the background video works. We have a folder called video. In here we have two files, video MP4 and video WebM. Now one of the reasons we don't use local video inner components that often is because you have to have more than one video file format. Not every web browser will play an MP4 file. Probably the most popular video file format right now is MP4, but not every browser supports it. So you have to have WebM and MP4. And if you're saying, well, how do I do that? Well, create your video in an MP4 format, fire up Google, say MP4 to WebM. You'll get a whole host of websites that have online converters. Upload your MP4 file, hit the convert to WebM, convert, download, and away you go. I'm not going to send you a link to any pages because sites go up and down all the time, so it's no use sending you a link to a website. They may not be there. So I'm just going to suggest you Google it, MP4 to WebM, and then you'll find a site that does that sort of a thing. Keep your video names short, sweet, one word. That is my recommendation. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say we want to add another slide and we have another video, and that video is about our camping trip. Right. So I'm going to have, I'll just use this as an example, camping.mp4. Right. And let's say I have a camping.webm. Cool. So let's say I put my two videos in here. Now how do I get that to work in the slider? Well, I'm going to find my video slide, HS video, it's right there, slide number 4, copy, I'm going to paste down below, and right here is the key, library, sliders, hero slider, video. It's really important to keep your video in this folder right here. You can put it somewhere else and change the path, but that could get hinky, right? But let's notice here, library, sliders, hero slider, so we get to this folder, and then we mention the video folder, and then it says video. Well, what this actually is, it's just saying look for the video file that has video as the name of the file. Don't worry about the extension. And what I mean by that is, if we're going to do this for camping, all we have to do is change this to camping, just like so. Because we only want to put in the first name of the video file. We don't actually want to put in the extension, because the script that runs the slider will determine what browser is being used and what the best file format is going to be for that browser. Would it be MP4 or WebM? It will decide for you. You don't have to worry about that. You just have to make sure both videos are in here and they're both using a nice one word, right? Don't get all fancy with dashes or spaces. Oh, don't do that. Don't use 2 words with a space. It'll never work. Keep it one word, lowercase, no punctuation, no weird stuff, just nice and simple, okay, and then load it in. Now the other thing with the background video, let's take a look at slide 4 here. It is a background video. It is not, this is a slider, so it's not really intended to be a video player. In other words, if this video in the background is a 2-minute video, the slider's not going to stop and wait 2 minutes. It's going to continue on to the next slide, because the video is just background. It's not an actual video player. If you do not want, if you say you wanted to use this for all video, hey, that's not a bad idea. Just you'll have to change it from autoplay to manual play, and then the user could go through each. You could have this video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4, for example, and the user could go through here manually and select which video they want to watch, and then the video would play and the slider would never change. And in order to do that, we're just going to go jump back to our site.